And closer to home, it was nothing spectacular, but the local bourse finished up for the second consecutive session. I spoke earlier to Ken Howard from RBS Morgans. Well, Ken Howard, a strong offshore lead, but the market seemed to run out of a bit of steam. Why was that?
Yeah, it seemed to be another lacklustre Monday. The market did open stronger, but by lunchtime it seemed to have lost a bit of its strength. Perhaps it's the stronger Australian dollar offsetting some of those international gains. Perhaps it's the fact we're heading into reporting season and investors are just sitting on their hands waiting for those outlook statements. So I'm guessing most people have a fair idea of the year that was. Or maybe it's just the fact we're in confession season and people are waiting for downgrades and capital raisings to come through. But yeah, fairly disappointing day on our market today and yet another pretty weak Monday.
Well, let's go to the corporates, and shares in Whitehaven Coal have surged 18%. But at $4.07, they're still well below the bid price of $5.20 that from Nathan Tinkler, aren't they?
Yeah, as you said, a good response today, but well short of the proposed takeover price, $5.20, a good 30% short. So I guess a lot of investors are still sceptical about Tinkler's ability to bring together the capital and finance it in the current market at $5.20. Although I would say that they now have a 30-day exclusive due diligence period, and perhaps that's what they'll need to be able to convince the financiers to join the deal. Certainly, investors would have been a lot happier if they'd seen some strategic investors, big coal miners or big coal customers as part of the bid. But at this point, it just seems to be a straight financial transaction, and people are fairly cautious about the ability to raise capital.
Now, we have had a pretty big capital raising announced today, $440 million from Seven West Media. How important was that?
Yeah, look, I guess symptomatic of credit markets. All that money that's being raised is going to be used to reduce debt. Unfortunately, it's a sign of the economy struggling that some of our big media companies still aren't seeing a return to that advertising growth that they've seen in the past. So Seven did reaffirm it's like $470 million as EBIT for this year. But I guess investors are going to be cautious on the outlook for media. Seven did reaffirm a 50% payout ratio of profits and gave guidance for dividends for this year and for next, no doubt, to try and keep those retail investors on board. But it has been a pretty weak market, and I'm guessing, even though the offer's fully underwritten, that the retail investors will be fairly cautious. So we might see quite a bit of loose stock out there, and I'm guessing we'll see that Seven share price head towards 130 when it starts trading again on Thursday.
I see. And on the debt side, I see Westpac is raising $500 million. What's that saying about investor demand?
Look, it's certainly showing where the investor demand is, and that's in the low-risk side of things. So Westpac is following ANZ and NAB, who have issued these notes so far this year at 2.75 above the 90-day bank bill. So certainly not a great return story there, certainly not a growth story, but it certainly seems to be where investor appetite is. I guess on the plus side, though, for all those shareholders with bank shares, banks are still able to raise this type of capital to strengthen their balance sheet. It's important from a regulatory point of view, but I think it's also very important from the point of view of international bond investors who finance about a third of Australia's loans that the big banks go out and borrow money for. So very important for our big banks to keep their strong credit rating and strong balance sheet, and this is just another step in that process.
Yeah, a whole lot easier than banking in Europe. Ken Howard, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Tiki.
And to the other major movers on the local share market. Encouraging production figures sent Northern Star Resources shares almost 6% higher. The maker of 4 and 20 pies, Patty's Foods, says annual profits could be up as much as 7%, but its share price dipped. The Australian Agricultural Company shares moved up after signing a land management deal with the Barnaba people in the Kimberley. And Iluka Resources rose. Its chief defended his decision to surprise investors with a sales downgrade. Turning to currency markets, the Australian dollar closed more than 0.5 cent higher. And in commodities in New York, oil is $87.13 a barrel. Gold dipped to $1,589 an ounce.